Obviously, I look at this exercise as pure show. Militarily, they wouldn't be able to do any of the things that they did in a wartime scenario. Taiwan Strait basically is a kill zone. If China wants to come over, they got no place to hide over Taiwan Strait, airspace, sea space, and underwater.
Yeah, it would be a one-way trip.
It would be a one-way trip, and some of them might not even make it.
I've never done a field training exercises that was less than 2 days long.
Neither have I. We never had such short training.
13 hours,
Yeah,
not
it was
even
only
a day.
about 13 hours, less than a day.
That's like less than a Ku Warren video. Even I did like 24 hours when I did mine.
Yeah, Ku's videos are more intense than the Chinese training.
By now, I think that no introduction is needed for today's guest. But if you, for some reason, have not seen the previous videos with Tony and Uncle Topher, please go back, educate yourself, and then we're going to continue with this little series we have going here. What has happened since last time you were here, which was after the election, but before William Lai became president? Has there been any changes or updates since last time we spoke?
I would say there's a few major incidences that should be addressed. Let's see, there was the Operation Joint Sword 2024A, and then we just had Operation Joint Sword 2024B. Speaking of China's military capabilities, their aggression with the Philippines is also a very noteworthy thing. That really ramped up in the spring of the summer. And I think it's worth talking about the U.S. election process because there was a lot of shakeup with the candidates, and that's just its whole thing.
The major change, of course, William Lai has assumed the presidency, and the U.S. election process, as Topher said, it's moving along and moving into the final stages.
I would also say is that for the first time in a long time, China did an intercontinental ballistic test where they shot a missile that has the capability to reach the U.S., but of course it just landed in the ocean.
Joint Sword 2024A, which was a response to the William Lai becoming the new president here in Taiwan. Was that as you expected it to be when we last were talking, or were you like surprised in any way of that actual exercise?
I thought it would be more intense than what it actually was. I expected something more akin to what happened when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan in 2022. Missiles being launched over Taiwan. I expected a live fire exercise. None of that happened at all, actually. They did increase their presence along the Matsu Islands, though. Basically, on a strategic level, practicing blockade operations.
It is much less than I expected also. Obviously, I look at this exercise as pure show. It really has no military value. The purpose mainly is more political. Try to intimidate people on Taiwan, also demonstrate to the people on the mainland themselves that, hey, Xi Jinping is doing something about this. Militarily, they wouldn't be able to do any of the things that they did in a wartime scenario or even in a blockade scenario. Those would not be effective at all. And we can talk more about that later on.
How about we talk about 2024B then? This was then a response for the 1010 celebrations here in Taiwan. How was that as its individual exercise? And if we compare that with then 2024A, was there any like big differences in terms of like the signals it's sending, or should we be more worried for 2024B, for example?
I think the biggest change is more usage of the Coast Guard assets, the gray zone type things. This is a direction similar to what they've been doing in South China Sea, which is difficult to respond. One day they changed the Navy destroyer into a Coast Guard ship, and they just repainted the darn thing, but its warfighting purpose is still there. So what do you do? This is something I guess is still requires thinking as far as how to respond. But I think for this particular exercise, we saw more of that gray zone stuff versus the direct intrusion of the military aircraft and Navy ships. They use more Coast Guard and maritime militia type activities.
The biggest difference between the two was that 2024B seemed to be as intense, basically, but in a much shorter time frame.
13 hours,
Yeah,
not
it's
even
only
a day.
about 13 hours, less than a day, which goes again to show that there's no actual military training training happening. I've never done a field training exercises that was less than 2 days long.
Neither have I. We never had such short training.
That's like less than a Ku Warren video. Even I did like 24 hours when I did mine.
Yeah, Ku's videos are more intense than the Chinese training. But there was an increased number of aircraft. The headlines in the newspapers, they'll hear aircraft and then they change it to warfighter jets and stuff. But I think a lot of that aircraft was actually drones. That's still a threat, obviously, but it's not the same thing as launching 150 fighter jets.
International airspace, they have free access. They can fly 2,000 if they wanted to, but in times of conflict, they can survive. They won't be doing the same thing. Therefore, when you're fighting, will you be doing this same type of drilling holes and going back and forth? No,
right.
You won't be.
Exactly.
So like Topher said, military value, if that's how you're going to fight, please do.
That's fine.
They tried to intimidate Taiwan. It didn't work. Life went on. Stock market went up.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think China need to learn. They often end up having the exact reverse of what they're hoping for when they do stuff like this. Taiwan is no longer intimidated.
Yeah, I honestly think this is mostly propaganda for Chinese citizens.
Yeah, for domestic consumption.
Yeah, more so than the international audience.
We now have a new president compared to when we sat here talking last time. Has that had any effect on any kind of like Taiwan-China relationship, Taiwan-US relationship, or anything else since we last spoke? I just have the impression that William Lai, when he has his speeches, he has a little bit more not as nice tone, or he has a little bit like more pizzazz in his speeches.
Maybe we should put it as he's more realistic with what has happened. Two sides have separated for 75 years. Yeah. China and Taiwan have taken on a different path. And what he said about neither country is a subordinate to each other, which is true. Xi Jinping's dream of annexing Taiwan and people on Taiwan sort of just subjugate themselves to the Communist Party, it's not going to happen. The people on Taiwan has lived under democracy for a while now. They're used to this type of lifestyle. They can pick their own leader. They can choose their own path. And they don't need Communist Party to come in and say, no, go this way. And I think Lai Ching-te is expressing that.
Yeah.
This is the facts of life. We're not under each other, okay? You're you, I am me. So that's basically the message Lai Ching-te is trying to express. Of course, this is the message that China doesn't want to hear.
Is this different from the message that Tsai Ing-wen had? What is like the biggest differences so far in the presidencies?
Tsai Ing-wen expressed similar intent, but not in such a clear-cut way. I think she played it right. Lai Ching-te, as the president of Taiwan, elected by the people of Taiwan, he has to say how the people of Taiwan feels. I do believe he expressed the majority point of view of the people in Taiwan.
How does that affect, let's say, Taiwan-China relationship or Taiwan and other nations relationship?
You heard what happened recently in South Africa, where China is trying to force Taiwan office out of their capital. Obviously, China is trying to find new ways to isolate Taiwan and make Taiwan look bad. I would imagine South Africa is only one of the few that's coming up. Now, I suspect China is doing a full court press to make Lai Ching-te look bad. So they're approaching many countries with same type of demand as they did with South Africa. South Africa folded, which is too bad because South Africa is a large country. But then South Africa is trying to join BRIC, where China has a lot of influence. So if you look from South Africa's side, what they hope to achieve, you sort of say, okay, that's why they're wanting to accept the Chinese influence like that. Other sovereign nations might not fold so easily. They don't allow China to have such leverage. That's one of the things we should expect as far as change it for the worse.
I think an interesting aspect is that a lot of Taiwanese and American business has left China. And major Taiwanese companies are partnering with other huge nations. TSMC is just a great example of that.
If we go back to the military pressure, which is something we talked a lot about last time we were here, we did mention that Taiwan had one of the best air defense systems in the world.
Still the case, and since our last meeting, Taiwan has increased its anti-ship capability. tremendously because, as I mentioned last time, Taiwan Strait basically is a kill zone. If China wants to come over, they got no place to hide over Taiwan Strait, airspace, sea space, and underwater. So Taiwan has undertaken additional preparation, such as mobile anti-ship battalions. Now they have the Xiongfeng missiles on launch trucks that they can move around and position and remain survivable by its mobility. That's something that has grown as far as capability goes, and it is a critical issue because while China will initiate any attack against Taiwan with cybers and missiles and stuff, they still have to come over. They got to put boot on the ground.
Yeah.
When Taiwan attrit China to a point, probably around 35% of attrition, they basically have no chance of winning. Everything else I send is just send them to the graves because I cannot occupy Taiwan with the number of people I have left. And so why start?
Taiwan has a very robust missile industry here in Taiwan. They don't rely on other countries. The weapon systems that they buy from the United States are what, like a phrase would be, icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Basically, like it's a great bonus to have. These are proven weapon systems. They work great, but they're working in conjunction with systems that Taiwan is making here at home.
Last time, you, Topher, said that...
I've seen a lot of other huge YouTube channels and media outlets that seem to have the idea that if China wanted to launch an invasion next week, they could. And that is just completely false. There's no way that they're years out from having enough equipment and training to launch even an attempt at a successful invasion.
It has now actually passed like 6 months since that statement. Is China on that same track, or are they like accelerated their own military, or are they like slowing down even?
To realistically put boots on the ground to invade Taiwan, you need to have your soldiers travel by ship. If you actually look at the history of airborne operations, most of them didn't work out very well. Had extremely high casualty rates. Honestly, what they would need is thousands of small vessels because you want hard, fast-moving targets that have the ability to cross the strait. And they don't have that capability yet, and it doesn't look like they're building it.
Yeah, plus small vessels won't have enough range to reach Taiwan.
Yeah, it would be a one-way trip.
It would be a one-way trip, and some of them might not even make it. In addition, Taiwan has the kind of resiliency to last weeks, if not months. But during those weeks, if China decides to do a blockade, almost immediately China will come under sanctions, international economic and other sanctions. And then I say within a week or so, there will be international escort convoys organized to make sure those natural gas and stuff get through. And will China attack these international convoys? I doubt it.
Yeah.
They certainly don't want to escalate the conflict. So I think, I truly believe China have studied this scenario. That's why everything they do right now is not what they're going to do during wartime. They cannot afford to do a blockade. They know it will not be successful and it will kill them economically. If they want to attack Taiwan, they have to have the major strike, take it over in a week or two. Whatever plan they have to make sure that initial strike provide a successful stepping stone toward the end game. Blockade takes 3 weeks and stuff. It's not a stepping stone toward the end game. It's a stepping stone to a failure because during that week or 2 or 3, coalition forces are forward deploying. So they have no chance militarily to win while the convoys continue going, even though I know there are people who totally believe that this is going to choke Taiwan to death. I don't see it. I can't imagine the world will stand by, allow China to do a blockade and choke Taiwan for 3 weeks, a month. I don't see it.
China still relies on the rest of the world for its economy.
Yeah.
China got rich doing business with the United States and Europe. It didn't get rich doing business with Russia and Iran.
Yeah, if they get sanctions, they themselves, I wonder who will fall first, Taiwan or China.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of internal politics within China that we just don't see. And there's a lot of wealth and power in China that would not tolerate losing that wealth and power. I can absolutely see a blockade happening around the islands that are close to the mainland.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Matsu, Kinmen. I can absolutely see that happening.
Yeah, Kinmen and Matsu is not defensible.
Right.
And I'm not going to be very popular saying this, but all this cognitive warfare that they're doing in Taiwan, propagandas, they're more successful in Kinmen. because Kinmen's lifeline is China. They do business that way. That's how they earn their money. My own assessment, majority of the people living in Kinmen recognize that. Their livelihood actually depends on China. Like this time, the exercise didn't include Kinmen. There's nothing around Kinmen. I think China can be pretty sure if they somehow got the people in Kinmen to vote, they probably can grab Kinmen without a bullet, and they use democracy against democracy.
Right.
That's the will of the people.
Right.
What you going to do? So I suspect they can take Kinmen without a fight. And I know this is not a popular thought, but that's my own personal observation. If the KMT legislator in Kinmen decided, I just want to vote. I want to know.
Let's just have a referendum vote.
Just have a referendum of the Kinmen people and find out the Kinmen people rather be part of China. What is the central government in Taipei going to do? You are a democracy and the voice of the people, right?
Like, let's say that the Kinmen then would have a vote, peacefully vote, and they would want to be part of China. What implications or changes would that have for maybe a future Chinese invasion if they now have Kinmen already?
In the old days, Kinmen was the tripwire. Today, in today's technology, sensor technology, you don't need a tripwire anymore. Because before you couldn't see it, the troops on Kinmen was going to put up a fight to delay Chinese invasion of Taiwan, and that was their role. Militarily, Kinmen's role has diminished dramatically just because of technology.
But I think it would be a significant propaganda victory for the CCP. It all comes down to how they treat the people of Kinmen afterwards. I mean, if it goes the way of Hong Kong, then it could very much be a net loss in the end.
Yeah, because they see the importance of making sure they do it right with Kinmen. They would go out of their ways to make sure the people on Kinmen gets treated well and publicize it. It will be a different scenario, and I think they will be successful in making those people say, yeah, we're great under communism, we're great. I think it's critical for the Lai government right now to plan ahead in case this happens, making sure that the message is clear, that the path Kinmen takes is their own and it's different from us here in Taiwan. And, we don't want to go down the same path.
Is this Kinmen scenario more likely than a blockade? Or is there another thing that is even more likely to happen?
I think the biggest thing that could happen, which is well within the realm of possibility, is Xi Jinping having a major health crisis. Right? He's an old man. He's under a lot of stress. There's a lot of rumors that he might have had a stroke not too long ago. Something like that could happen. It could completely change the narrative to everything. A significant change in U.S. politics and foreign policy might happen, but I think that's less of a possibility.
Yeah, I think it would be great if Xi Jinping ended up being replaced, and that will give China, the new leader, an opportunity to continue the growth of China and allow Taiwan to prosper, the two sides to prosper together, rather than taking on the current scenario, which is a no-win. Because if Xi Jinping decides to attack Taiwan, it's a massive loss from both sides. Chinese economy will be set back 30 years, and Taiwan too. There's nothing good going to come out of this.
It'd be a massive loss for the world.
For the whole world.
Economy.
So it'd be better for the Chinese side to recognize the current scenario of being separated. It's matter of fact. It's really two countries. Just say, okay, let's live peacefully. Allow us to continue to grow. Because if there's a war, China's growth is zero. It's going to be negative, and negative for a long time. The only reason we are in the situation we are now is because the emperor dream of Xi Jinping. One person. I hope the Chinese people recognize this. This one person is going to bring you down the drain. Your lifestyle will change if there's a war. His empire dream is the whole world's nightmare. If we can keep him dreaming, not act on the dream, like Putin did act on his dream, bad mistake to act on his dream. Hopefully, Xi Jinping continue to dream or go away, and the next person that takes over is wiser and have a longer view of the future, then we'll all be living in peace.
How does the rest of the world think? Do they mostly just follow the US, or are there any situations there that you might be aware of?
I think it's been very interesting to see other nations sailing warships through the Taiwan Strait. Japan, Germany, I think
Italy.
Spain. Oh, that's what Italy.
And Spain came, and
Spain.
certainly United Kingdom.
That is very telling.
It's in everybody's interest to make sure that peace prevails in this area. So internationally, and thanks to Xi Jinping, Taiwan has gained such visibility in the last 4 or 5 years. Taiwan couldn't do it better themselves, to promote its own. This is an international issue, and I'm glad you asked the question, because it's in everybody's interest to make sure nothing happens in the Western Pacific, because it will affect the entire world.
I mean, there's been estimates that if a conflict broke out between Taiwan and China, that the damage to the world economy would be, 15 times worse than COVID?
It's in billions. It's in billions, yeah.
It's insanely
It's
expensive.
insane. The trade that happens in the areas around Taiwan that go through every day, it's critical. And not to mention the destruction of capacity. If there's a war going on, that China's production gets destroyed, Taiwan's production gets destroyed, the whole world suffers, because both Taiwan and China are part of the global supply chain. And if that supply chain gets cut off, the unintended secondary consequences, I don't think anybody realized or has really understood the type of damage that might cause.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not just China and Taiwan. It's all the trade from South Korea and Japan that flows into Europe and India and Africa. That would also get
it's tremendous.
It'd be a disruption just to the whole supply chain.
It's going to affect the whole world, like Topher said.
Yeah, it'd be something that the entire planet would want to end that conflict as soon as possible.
Right. It'd be totally different from the conflict in Ukraine or in Israel.
Right.
Because the impact will be felt globally.
Oh, yeah, much more. It could be initiated by China by accident, because there are a lot of young hot dog pilots who do dangerous maneuvers.
Ship drivers, too.
Or ship drivers, too. I mean, we saw that with the Philippines and recently near Alaska.
Yeah.
So it's like just a stupid accident by someone who is, a 25-year-old that's blindsided by nationalism can easily start a global conflict.
Thank you so much. I think we're now all up to speed on what has happened or not happened since our last chat. So I wanted to focus on another topic, which is the US presidential election coming up. And the only thing you need to do to see that video is to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and also hit that notification bell so you get notified as soon as that video comes out here on the channel very, very soon. As always, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Lukas. Starts with L as in like, ends with S, and hit subscribe. Please do both, and see you all in the next one.